Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of our entertainment show, where we look at the upcoming TV series and blockbuster movies debuting here in Ireland in the upcoming sort of month. Yesterday we spoke all about Mortal Kombat and we spoke about Wrath of Man, two blockbuster movies coming to our screens here in Ireland this month. Tonight we're going to talk about a new blockbuster sort of TV series debuting in channel Amazon Prime here in Ireland and also in the UK. It's called Dim. One of the stars of the show is Sophie Guest. She plays the character Doris. And Sophie, first of all, delighted to be speaking to you today. And I suppose Dim, is it all about a quintessential horror type, racism type, 1950s type, thrown all into one sort of bracket?
Yeah, I would say that's a good description of it. So it is set in the 1950s, and it follows an African American family as they migrate from the South to East Compton and all the terrors they face on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I suppose, Sophie, you mentioned that about a sort of young, upcoming sort of black family. And in terms of society as such, with everything going on at the moment, it seems that it's very much a relevant, a sort of a topic as well for what, dear God, what we're seeing come about again, sadly. And I suppose, Dim, it shows probably the sort of misconceptions about humanity and the misconceptions about mother man in terms of equalness in society, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's a good description of it. I think being on this show, I definitely learned a lot about how that racism and inequality in housing, more specifically, in the 1950s still affects people today. So that was a great learning experience for me being on the show.
Yeah, and I suppose, Sophie, I was just listening to an interview where you spoke about your audition sort of process and how for certain elements you were probably kept in the dark about discovering on the spot, and how it was a hectic sort of audition process to land their role. You might enlighten some of our listeners a bit about that.
Yeah, so when I first got the audition, since I am in Pittsburgh, I usually film my auditions at home, and then I'll just send them to California. But for some auditions, I'll go out right away if the description of the character really fits me. So that's what happened with this role. This role called for the quintessential California girl, blonde hair, blue eyed, and I have blonde hair and blue eyes. So I was like, this is perfect for me. So I flew out to California. And I didn't get the script or anything. So I just got a brief character description and my sides. And that was it. So when I went into the audition, I had my character and my lines prepared in a certain way. But whenever I got into the room, the casting director, Julie Lowry, she told me that something that completely changed my view of the character. And it threw me off a little bit. But I think I did something right because I got the part. So...
And Sophie, you mentioned your character Doris. I know it hasn't aired here in Ireland just yet, so I've only been able to get my hands on the sort of bits and clips about the trailer as such. So your character Doris, is there sort of two sides to her personality? What you see straight before you, and then obviously what you see on a one-to-one basis. Is she sort of a poster girl, dare I say, for what America should be in the 1950s, or does she have any sort of morality issues or moral sort of values as well?
Yes, I think Doris is a very manipulative person in the first place. So who I play opposite of, Shahadi Wright Joseph, she plays Ruby Lee. And she really tries to manipulate her. And in Ruby Lee's eyes, I'm the idea of perfection. I'm the perfect, like you were saying, the poster girl of the 50s. I'm the proper lady, sit up straight with my legs crossed, the whole shebang, if you will. So I am kind of two-sided in that way, where I kind of try to lure her in to be my best friend, and then in the last second I kind of stab her in the back. But I'll leave that up for assumption.
And Sophie, playing that as an actress, getting to play sort of, dare I say, not two split personalities, but getting to play two two different characters in the one body. Is that exciting in terms of an actress giving you that more sort of scope in terms of what you can do with the sort of character that is not sort of so regiment, it's not sort of so strict in on what you see is what you get?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. It's very fun to play that kind of role because I get to be somebody who I'm not. I get to play that manipulative person who I'm not in everyday life. So it's definitely fun, and it's hard to do that because I do say some things as Doris that are hard to say because they're racist and they're rude. But I'm playing Doris. I'm being somebody that I'm not. So although it's hard to do, it's kind of fun because I get to be someone I'm not.
Mm. And Sophie, I suppose you have a sort of team in DIM for quite a series in terms of the morality issues, racism, but also what sort of baffles me looking about this is the whole element of supernatural thrown into the sort of mix as well. How are you sort of saying, so are they trying to cross so many sort of boundaries with the one series in terms of its growth and its sort of development? And is that the real big secret that we see this sort of, dare I say it, not sort of witchcraft, but extraterrestrial sort of forces at work? It almost sort of rocks you to sort of the core to saying, well, that's a quirky sort of twist.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm not going to spoil too much, but there is some definitely undertones of maybe some supernatural. That's about all I'll give you. But it is a plot twist. You don't expect it. And I think that kind of just shows that the terrors that this family is facing is not only literal, but it's supernatural as well. So they're being terrorized by their neighbors, by people actually surrounding them, and then these ideas in their head that they make up.
Mm. And Sophie, in terms of shooting this sort of series, Dim, were you lucky enough in terms of production and in terms of the final wrap that you sort of missed the whole sort of COVID outbreak? Was a project that was sort of completed? And if so, can you maybe enlighten us what the working week was what was it like on set of Dim in terms of from when you got the original script and the table read for that particular episode to the final sort of wrap of one episode? Were you talking about maybe 6 to 7 working days in terms of block shooting and offset shooting locations as well?
Yes, so I started filming in the fall of 2019. So at that time I was still going to school. So I would fly back and forth depending on what episodes I had to film, since I'm not in every episode. I'm only in 5 of the 10. So I'd fly back and forth depending on what episode they filmed. So because of COVID, I was only able to make one table read, which was still such a cool experience because it was my first table read ever. I'd never been to one before because this was my first TV show. So that was pretty cool. And then after that table read, we stopped. We were almost done with filming in March of 2020. And then we got hit by the pandemic. So I had production completely stopped. We were on like the last scene of my episode, my last scene ever. And then production stopped. So then we came back in August of 2020 and we filmed, and we had all the masks and we had to take COVID tests. So that was definitely a bump in the road, but it all worked out great.
And I suppose, Sophie, you're breaking into the industry sort of such now, and you've broke into the industry, the acting sort of drama industry in terms of TV series, movies time, which is a sort of a unique time. Never has this really been seen before in terms of how you audition for a role, in terms of how movies and TVs are sort of shot now. Has it been an eye-opener, a sort of a jaw-dropping sort of experience? Because obviously you mentioned you probably studied a bit in acting and TV and film. Nothing in terms of how your study sort of prepares you for something like this, I imagine.
Yes, it's definitely being able to like kind of live in acting. I started when I was 6 years old. So this whole experience is eye-opening for me because each production I'm able to work on, I learn new things every time. This production, I was able to learn more about the special effects side of filmmaking and TV shows. And that was a really cool experience. So every production I'm on, every audition I have is all a learning experience because I get to meet new people, and every experience I have is definitely eye-opening for sure.
And Sophie, just two more questions for you now before I let you go. And I suppose the second last question I'm going to ask you is probably the hardest one. You might have to rack your brains about this for a second. Let's pretend maybe after a few, hopefully, please God, a few seasons of Dame, maybe hopefully 4 or 5 seasons, maybe 20 episodes per season, maybe come back maybe 8 or 9 years to sort of produce sort of a book or an encyclopedia about the show, and they put your character Doris in that sort of description, and they leave 2 blank sentences underneath, and they ask you for they get onto your agent and they say, we want Sophie Guest to write that synopsis having played the character Doris in terms of those 2 sentences. What would you like those 2 sentences to read to describe her?
Oh my gosh, that is a packed question. Wow.
Yeah. It's a stumble one. It's a jaw dropper. It makes you have to think.
For sure. Are you asking about like a synopsis about the show or about
Doris?
Like,
Doris,
okay, about Doris.
Yeah. If someone asked you sort of in terms of if you met Doris for the first time and you knew what you were like, and someone says, put Doris into sort of 2 sentences there in terms of what she's about. You might have a paragraph for me, but I'm asking for 2 sentences.
Okay, I think I would say something like, she's a proper young lady, but will stab you in the back if she needs to. Okay. Someone you wouldn't expect. Okay. I think that's pretty good.
That's very good. Now I have to give you an A+ in terms of the grades. Anyway,
thank you.
Your professor will be at school will be very happy at that. I know that's. Sophie, I suppose lastly, for the last 30 seconds, I'm going to turn it over to your character, Doris. She might enlighten all our listeners and all our viewers why they should tune in here in Ireland to channel Amazon Prime, and what's in store for them when they sit down for the first time, and let's say they've never seen the trailer of them before in their lives in terms of what's it about. So we'll take it over to the character Doris herself, and Doris might enlighten our listeners what to expect. Over to you.
Yes, Them is a psychological thriller, if you will. So if you enjoy scary, psychologically terrifying shows, this is definitely the one for you. It makes you think. It is a great cinematography, acting, producing, and has fantastic music in the background. So I would definitely recommend watching it. I add a little bit of a synopsis at the beginning of our interview about what the show is about. So if you tune in, I hope you guys like it.
On that note, Sophie Guest, an absolute pleasure talking to you today as we look ahead with joyful anticipation for the release of Dame here on channel Amazon Prime in Ireland and the UK. Sophie, we hope it's a predominant, the first of many projects, hopefully in the first of many more seasons for Dame to come. And we look forward to seeing you much more on our TV screens here in Ireland in the near future. But for the moment, Sophie Guest, God bless, take care, and stay safe.
Likewise. Thank you.